But one of the first lessons I learned when God called me and I answered was, we're not designed to run from battles. We're not designed to run from fights. Yeah, sometimes we flee, but we're designed to run towards the lost, not away from them. Because we remember, we always look back at where we were. True Christians always look back at where we were and where we are now. And we look like, wait, I can't keep turning my back on people because of my growth. And I see that's what a lot of people do, especially a lot of Christians do this. They grow, and they grow, then they forget about what it's all about. They got a status. You can look around. I understand, don't be unequally yoked with non-believers. But at the same time, you got to remember, Jesus sat with sinners. Don't come to a stage in your life that you feel like you're better than other people. Who are you reaching? Basically, you stop trying to reach other people. It's all about you now. Don't be like Kenneth Copeland. I got to have a jet because I can't sit around evil people. When you don't even know you're evil yourself. Just for even saying that. Just for even saying that. I can't sit with them no more. I'm growing to pass. I'm soaring with the eagles now. Let me tell you something. The disciples soared with the eagles too. But they didn't hang around with the rich. Oh, did you catch that? Did you see them hanging around and with Pharaoh and the other rich folks? No, they was with the poor folks. Paul even had a job working with the lady that made purple. He was out there working with his hands with them. He didn't go sit in. Jesus said, behold, those such people sit in kings' houses. The Son of Man came eating and drinking with publicans and sinners. You see, the Pharisees, that's how they are. They don't care about the lost sheep no more. I started paying attention. I'm like, Lord, why you always send me around people that have difficulties? When is going to come a time when I ain't got to worry about none of that? Never. Never. What's the old saying? Don't forget where you came from. They said, but you were washed, but you were cleansed. So were some of you. But you were washed, and so you were cleansed. But now you are higher. And you judging the people of where you used to be. I'm not like them anymore. Just like that Pharisee. Just like that person that stood up. Lord, behold, I'm glad I'm not out there like them. So far in my walk with Christ, God has never put me around rich folks. Or people that think they rich. I might work with them. But he's never like pushed me out to a point where I forget about where I was. Now keep in mind, he told Paul, he said, you can go to kings and rulers for what? For my name's sake. But Paul himself never became a king or a ruler. But he was in their presence, in their audiences to do what? Glorify God. Not to glorify yourself. God may elevate your status or elevate who you are able to reach. Not for you to become like them, but for you to still be that humble, same person that God saved years ago. Does it make sense to you? Not to hate the rich and not to despise the poor. You are a intercessor. He said, the salt loses its savor. How would it be salted? You understand? You are the salt of the earth. So one thing about you're going to realize about salt, not only does poor people use salt, but rich people too. So poor and rich need to be fed. So you're like designed to be a intermediate. You're in the balance. You're not rich. You're not poor. You're humbled. Mm-hmm. You're right there. You don't consider them less than you, and you consider them more than you. You look at everybody as an equal. That's humbling. Just because you make more money than somebody don't mean you still don't have to get out there and get into the trenches. You see, that's what I see in this world. A lot of Christians are stuck at that stage where, look at me now. Forget about everything and everyone. Ain't that something? Don't that sucks? Don't you think that's horrible to be like that? I ain't gonna pause the video. I gotta get some cash out the ATM, but I'm gonna keep this going. Give me a second, people. Bear with me a little second. I don't want to stop yet. You see, God is not saying he's not going to give you funds. He will. But what are you doing with it? I talked about it yesterday, people. I want increase. I really do. But I didn't notice something over the past few years. I'm like I grew up in the video game era. I love video games, but I get one and don't play it. I'm like, what in the world? I'm starting to realize I get a lot of stuff that I don't utilize. I'm like, why am I getting this stuff? You know, I don't have my kids, so I figure sometimes I get stuff for when other people come around. I'm like, this ain't even for me. Ain't this crazy? You know, I had got a new Bible from someone a few months ago, probably about 7 months ago, and I never used it. I just wanted it. I said, you mind if I had that Bible? You got a lot of Bibles, so let me get that one. I like King James Version Bibles. So I get that Bible and I kept it in my truck. Never opened it because I always use this one right here. This is my favorite one. So I get that Bible and I just keep it here. Probably about 3 weeks ago, I picked somebody up from work on the Sabbath day. Check this out. On the Sabbath day. And I'm like, man, it's my rest day. And then God kind of convicted me. He was like, go pick him up. It's a reason why they call you. So I get up. I ain't even get dressed up or nothing. I just didn't comb my hair, just threw a hat on, stepped out, went and picked her up, and I'm riding. And she was like, Houston, you got a Bible? I'm like, yeah. At first I thought, I was like, oh, okay. Then I looked. I was like, that's what this was here for. I said, here you go. And I felt so good by giving them the word on the Sabbath day, Saturday. And that has happened to me so many times. You got to realize who you work for. There are some people, your presence alone, because the Holy Spirit resides in you, you need to be in certain places at certain times to accomplish the work. But you can't get to a point where you're like, well, this is my day. This is the day the Lord has given me. So I ain't worried about nobody else. You got to worry about others. I remember years ago when I first started getting back out there, when I first started working in the moving industry. And I used to be worried so much about getting a ride to work. And this all that it was coming to my man. I got you. Trust me. Some days I had to walk. I ain't have a vehicle at the time. And then all of a sudden, people like, I pick you up. And I try to give people funds. They be like, don't worry about it. I'm like, what? Don't worry about it. So as I keep doing that, eventually a car landed in my lap. And everything that I went through started making sense. People like, here was some gas. I'm like, I don't want no gas. And I'd be like, most people are like, what? Because I'm not expecting nothing about it. I just see what God has done for me. And I see how God will provide. And I'm not going to say this to gloat, people. Do you know right now, through the grace of God and the mercy of God, I don't have to pay for gas right now. I don't have to pay a car note. Not for me to use that as I'm better than somebody else, but I can use that ability to help many. Do you understand? Think of the fact you ain't got to pay for gas and somebody needs a ride. But sometimes people are forcing it on me. Because God knows what you need when you don't need it. I picked up that same person last week on another Sabbath day. I wasn't planning on getting out the house again. They were like, here you go, Houston. I'm like, what's this for? Don't worry about it, keep it. But I refused so many times. But don't rob other people of their blessings by assisting you either. But I didn't do it expecting nothing in return. And I'm not telling you this to act like I'm better than somebody else. I'm telling you this because this is what I'm learning. Don't rob other people of their blessings from giving. Take it when it's given to you, but don't seek it. Does it make sense? You know, you ever been in a phase when you just wanting something so bad you calling everybody, just begging, just calling, and it don't happen. Then you humble yourself, be like, I ain't even worried about it no more. Then you chilling, and then somebody come along with what you've been wanting, and you just stop asking. You humble yourself. Because you started realizing God knows what I need before I need it. You ain't trying to work hard to get a new car. You ain't trying to work hard to get a new house. You ain't start spreading the gospel to be prosperous for us in this world's sake. He just told you, you're supposed to hate this world. Why are you going to hate the world so much? Because you're going to hate how the world operates. Yeah, you love your family, but you see that sometimes family ain't even family. You know, I used to go to bars a lot during my single phases, and I go by myself. And sometimes I used to try to call people, but then for a moment it was like, just go by yourself. And you'll realize real quick how many times God have set a friend company with you. I'll be sitting at the bar drinking my beer, watching UFC fights, because I was bored and I was lonely. And then somebody, just a random stranger, sit there. Sometimes they'll start talking about God with me. You know what I learned is pray for favor. I'm gonna tell you why I learned it. A few years ago when I first started working for the moving industry, there was a guy, and he was sitting next to me. He was like, he worked down at Austin. And he said he was just praying for this, praying for that, praying for this, praying for that. Then he said a dude came to him and said, pray for favor. Now watch how he bear fruit. Somebody told him to pray for favor. And he was like, I'm telling you now, start praying for favor. I was like, what? I never thought about that. So I started praying for favor, and then favor started coming. Mm-hmm. And now he didn't bear fruit. So you know what I tell other people? Start praying for favor. It don't matter where you are. Mm-hmm. It's all about who you work for. You know, I'm not telling you to go out to the house, to the bars and the clubs and stuff, trying to meet people. But God knows your heart. He knows what you're going through. He knows what you're going to try to do. But think about it. Any spot can turn into a ministry. I always tell people about the time I had to minister to somebody in the strip club. They're like, what? That's no Christian you. I know it was a Christian to me. I was very lustful at that time, and I was like, man, I was going through my first divorce, and I had found God. I was just so angry. I was trying to get my mind off a lot of things, and I chose the strip club to go to. But even inside that strip club, God kept sending me one woman, kept coming to me. Every time she saw me, she came to me and talked to me. And I ministered to her. And then months later, she was like, hey, everything you said helped me. She's like, I stopped stripping. I went back to college and I got my kids back. I was like, glory be to God. I was like, at first I was thinking, why did God give me that update? He wants you to know that you're doing the right thing. Stop beating yourself up. You see, a lot of y'all are scared to sit down with harlots and drug dealers and thieves. But you will sit with the rich. Y'all ain't hearing me. You trying to run from sinners, and you sitting among them yourselves, thinking that they ain't, thinking they got it made. Oh, look at them. They sin free now. Look at the wealth they got. Look at the wealth they done accumulated. You turn into a Pharisee. Look at Jesus over there. Look at Jesus. Look at Jesus over there sitting with sinners. And they hated Jesus. Because Jesus kept putting them in their place. Every time they thought they could catch him with guile or random questioning, Jesus was like, hit them with a parable. Start talking to them about them. Think about this whole thing. He went to a feast. And he's talking about everything that's going on in there. So I mean, he sat down in there and looked around, observed the area. He'd be like, then the Holy Spirit moved him. That's what I'm talking about today. Let's talk about that. No matter tell her how many people left there convicted. Like, golly, boy, he put some stuff in. Oh, boy. But they say they loved him because he taught us one with authority. That's why they say many people listen to him, because he taught us one with authority. Not as though he dressed the part. He didn't come there with a 4-piece suit on, some gaiters, pimp hat, $300 tie. Same thing he wear every day. People, stop changing the glory of God into a physical form, a look, a certain way to dress. Ain't the life more than raiment? We live in a world where we believe that dressing the part makes you the part. In my life since I've been walking, that's why I don't beat people up about drinking. Because I've been put in my place by a person with a jack in his hand or whatever liquor he had. Might have been a Mad Dog 2020 or a Wild Irish Rose, and put me in my place. And I didn't understand what he was saying. And I was out there with him. This happened to me twice. He was like, don't blend in. I'm like, what are you talking about? That don't even make sense. You drinking. Don't blend in. They're like, you see them, they don't even listen to me. He was talking to me like he was God. But they don't even listen to me. I remember one example. Let me pause now, we'll continue.